So good morning. A little chilly out there this morning, but it'll be. I'm told that it'll be really warm at lunch, so you'll do great. So welcome to UCSD and the Qualcomm Institute, and to what we in the planning group have come to just call the Tech Summit, and you'll know why as things go along. I'm Kevin Patrick, professor in the School of Medicine here at UCSD and director of a laboratory in this building, in this institute, that focuses on innovative use of technologies to measure and improve individual population and public health. The origins of this meeting began in discussions many months ago with colleagues at the International Life Sciences Institute, the National Cancer Institute, the American College of Sports Medicine, the CDC, and the Nutrition Research Lab at the U.S. Department of Agriculture. The sense was that there was a need to bring together leaders in the area of health behavior and nutrition and physical activity and technology to discuss the fast-moving advances in computing and information technologies that form a new way of looking at these types of behaviors that are critical to health. While the main focus of this session is going to be on diet and physical activity behaviors, all along there has been the sense that there is a larger constellation of things that are both influenced by and influence those kinds of behaviors, and it's really important for us to be improving the methods by which we measure and understand these things to optimize health. So this summit aims to address these advances as well as the inherent challenges and limitations in these technologies. While a lot of focus is going to be on better measurement, it is impossible to discuss these issues, more and more of us know, without also thinking about the implications of these for intervention. So you'll be hearing a fair amount about this, ways that measurement improves things successively and iteratively. While we have several excellent presentations lined up, we have set aside major chunks of this meeting for breakout groups to actually solicit your feedback and to get you engaged in discussions with respect to what we need to be thinking about for the future. Questions that we might discuss might be what needs more focus, or what particular areas of research will be high value, what might funders of research in this area focus on in their program announcements in the future, what do we need to emphasize in new technologies that will complement what is being developed by the private sector. We know that there's a lot of movement out there in the private sector, but I think many of us also acknowledge that that is not enough. They're only going to be doing the things that they want to do for their particular bottom line. So how do we think about this if we really want a broader approach? And how do we ensure that our training programs are producing the right kinds of experts to do this kind of research over the long haul? So all of the relevant sciences we want to be thinking about, from the health-related sciences to the engineering sciences to the data sciences. So we begin this morning with a set of presentations and discussions that we hope will set sort of a general stage, a general framework, and a common understanding of issues that are important to what we're talking about. Then the planning committee decided that we wanted to move to a life course approach and basically focus on children and adolescents, adults, and older adults. So that's the structure of this meeting, both this afternoon, tomorrow morning, and tomorrow afternoon, with separate sections. We envision a set of papers coming from this meeting that will focus on each of these life course areas, identifying the unique kinds of issues that are really important. And again, the hope is that these will be informative to people who are, again, putting together program announcements, background materials for grant proposals that they might develop, and other sorts of things. So I'd first like to thank the planning committee that has spent many meetings. We actually had weekly phone calls related to this. And so I'll just announce Lynette Kraft, Stephen Crozier, who you'll hear from in a moment. They're listed in your book with the affiliations, but so I'm just going to go through the names. Jim Hill, Chorsan Koo, David Clearfield, Diane Malunowitz, Courtney McCumber, Jane Senior, Heather Steele, Rick Troiano, and Jim Whitehead. Please stand up so that people know who's helped plan this group, if you can, that you're here. So feel free to connect with them as things go along. I'd like to give real special credit to Heather, Chorsan, and to Courtney, who have really put countless hours into planning this session. There's been a lot of work, a lot of detail that has gone into this, and I really give them a lot of credit for doing this. I'm sure many of you have interacted with them as things have gone along to help make sure that things come together. Also, I want to thank you for coming. We've got a terrific mix of participants at this meeting. Most come from the academic or government or nonprofit sector, but we also have a sizable number from the for-profit sector, ranging from small companies to very large ones. And I'd like to emphasize that this is a strength, I think, of this meeting. It's particularly appropriate for this particular institute here at the Qualcomm Institute. This is part of the California Institute for Telecommunications and Information Technology. It was created a little over a decade ago with a family of institutes of science and technology across the University of California campuses with this type of physical infrastructure to promote the relationships between academia and the private sector and other entities. Most of the work in this building has been focused on telecommunications and information technology, but there are a lot of other entities and companies. So again, those from the private sector are most welcome here, and it's really important, I think, to think about how we collaborate with you, those of us who have spent our lives in .edu or .gov environments. And I would point out that along these lines, the entire second floor of this building is now devoted to an incubator space for private companies. We call it the Qualcomm Institute Innovation Space. And there are companies that are cooking in this building and really doing some innovative work, and potentially some might be doing work in this area in the future. So I'm, for one, really interested in exploring how these new technologies can be leveraged to improve health in the area of diet. And I don't know if anybody saw this article in The Economist, just coincidentally this is this week's issue of The Economist, essentially, where they're talking about how the technology industry might be able to disrupt the food industry. Anybody see this? It's interesting, and but the sole focus is on how to deliver pizzas faster to people at home that are fresh and whatnot. And I think we need to be thinking broader than this. I think we can't stop about just thinking about getting a hot pizza to somebody's door. We really need to be thinking about how technologies can be used to really better understand, again, diet, nutrition, and other kinds of things. So finally, I wanted to add a little bit more context to this meeting, at least for the way I think about this meeting. And it relates to this initiative. You all are familiar with the Precision Medicine Initiative that President Obama announced in 2015, and this is now launched. There's $210 million in fiscal year 16. Major effort to study the relationships between genetics and medical response and a variety of other kinds of things. And again, a big part of this initiative is based here in San Diego with Dr. Eric Topol over at the Scripps Translation Research Institute. This initiative was initially envisioned by Francis Collins in 2004, where he sort of made this call for a major national cohort to better understand the relationships between genes and response to medical therapies and genetic exposures and environmental influences on health. And as part of this, there was the NIH Exposure Biology Program, which he didn't get the program started at that time related to the Precision Medicine Initiative, but felt that it was really important to get a better understanding of how to measure influences on health, and funded a set of projects in this portfolio. And I'm happy to say that we have 4 of the representatives who were funded, and I think they'll remember 10 years ago at this very time we were writing our grant proposals, because I think they were due on January 3rd or something like this. The NIH is always cruel at making us spend our holidays writing grant proposals. So I want to call out Rick Weiss of ViaCare, Carol Boucher, then of Purdue, who's now at University of Hawaii. Tom Baranowski is here with us, and then our group here at UCSD. Jacqueline Kerr, who will be joining us a little later. She's not yet here, I'm not sure. So we were all, again, part of this initiative to advance the methods. And I would point out that this was before the smartphone, and when Facebook had probably about 200 million users, not the 1.7 billion that it has now. And so things have changed. Things have changed very rapidly, in this domain. And that's one reason that we're here, is we're trying to sort of, again, talk and think about how we might leverage our understanding of the rapidity of this change, and you'll hear a bit more about this a little bit later. Along these lines, I want just a few housekeeping issues here. We have an idea board outside. So if anybody has ideas or suggestions that they want to think that we should be talking about, and it doesn't happen to come up or whatnot, there are Post-its and whatnot, so that's right across from the registration desk. Please don't be shy about putting something up there. And this can be a parking lot for things that we might also be thinking about including in the papers that come from the session or other things. So please, put that out if you think that that's an important thing to do. Second, the posters. We have some posters out in front that were submitted to us that are pretty interesting. The planning committee is going to be looking at those over the day, and we're going to try and wrestle with the notion of which one we think is sort of a standout. They're all really good, we think, but we want to acknowledge one as a kind of the leader that we think, and so we'll be announcing that a little later in the afternoon. So please look at them, and again, give some feedback to the folks who are there and who have took the time to produce those. Few other housekeeping things before I ask Stephen Crozier, who is chair of the ILSI Committee on Balancing Food and Activity for Health, to come up and make a few comments. No food and beverage in here, so please don't wander in here with your cup of coffee or whatever, and Johnny will knock you off at the knees if you try and do that. But it's one reason this auditorium is as nice as it is because that's been the rule since the inception. There are electrical outlets for your computer. If you haven't found them, they're under the right armrest. So if you need to plug in, you can plug in there. It's UCSD Guest for Wi-Fi. If you don't have EduRoam, some people might have EduRoam, but you can use UCS Guest for Wi-Fi, and it's explanatory. We'll be having some question and answer sessions after several of the presentations, and so please, there are microphones right here and here. Please use those and introduce yourselves just so people know who you are. And as I said last night at the reception that we had for our speakers, that I think it's really important for you to meet a few people that you might not have ordinarily met. I mean, we do have people from different groups and folks that you might not have interacted with. So please feel free to reach out and connect and exchange business cards and make some new connections as you're here. Okay. So I think that's it for the housekeeping stuff. Stephen, where is Stephen? Stephen will come up and make a few welcoming comments before we get to our opening session.
So first off, I guess I could just say ditto to everything that Kevin has already said. I also think a round of applause is due to Kevin for really reaching out to offer this facility, which is fantastic. Just maybe a slight change on some of the things that Kevin has already said. Again, I'm up here because I am the chair of the technical committee for balancing food and activity for health at ILSI. But I recognize that maybe some people in the room, and it's maybe a good thing actually, if some people in the room don't really know what ILSI is. So ILSI North America is a public nonprofit foundation, and its core mission is to advance the understanding and application of science related to food, nutrition, and safety. And it accomplishes this mission in a variety of ways. It sponsors research programs, sponsors workshops and seminars like the one we have today. And importantly, it's meant to be a neutral forum for government, academic, and industry scientists to discuss relevant issues. And we've heard so much of this lately about the importance of private-public partnerships. And I guess I'll give you a bit of my perspective on this. This was dreamed up by the technical committee. I think it was 2 years ago at FENCI. And I recall sitting in the room with Chor San, Heather, and Jim Hill, and John Jakasik, and others. We were talking about the fact that energy balance is becoming a dirty word, and I'll get into that a little bit. But it's really, there's so many people out there that believe that energy balance is calories in, calories out. That's all that really matters. If that were true, I think we would have solved the obesity problem already. From what I learned in school anyway, X plus Y equals Z. Z equals Z is not really a good equation. And frankly, there are a lot of people that try to say that, intake is the entire issue. And I think, to be blunt, industry has probably faltered a little bit in trying to not counter that, or to say that that's not true, and really be defensive in that position. But I think moving forward, and certainly Diana, who's the vice chair of the committee, and all the members of this committee, we didn't get involved with this committee because how ILSI works is a group of industry partners get together and say, what's a topic of relevance to you? And we all said, well, we think this is a huge issue, this balancing food and activity to keep people healthy. We didn't get into this to play defense. We got into this topic so we could understand it. And this A plus B equals C doesn't fit. We need to find better science in order to solve this problem. And so what we said at that meeting 2 years ago was we said, if we're going to solve this, we can't use simple equations. We're really going to have to use newer technologies and new ways of thinking to address this problem. And I think that was really the genesis of this, and it's grown from there. I think in part of the planning, one of the things that Diane and I were really interested in doing is really reaching out to younger researchers, and because of that, that was one of the reasons, the major focus to get the poster session involved. And one of the things that we were going to announce today, actually, I think it was pre-released to most of you, but I just wanted to reiterate that. The committee has set aside $50,000 to really fund a pilot program. And you've got the details, but really what we thought was an important topic was new technologies to assess intake and expenditure to really get to this energy balance equation. And part of that, I guess a sub-focus of that was to look at underserved populations. And again, today we've got this broken down into youth, adults and the elderly. You could look at youth and the elderly as possible underserved populations or under-researched populations, but I think you could also look at, economic situations. You could look at, a variety of factors, but we do think that it would be really novel to explore the application of these technologies to underserved groups. So again, for everyone that is here, whether you're a postdoc, PhD, or a mentor, please, when you go back after this meeting, please look at that. I guess someone made a comment last night that the number of pages relevant to the size of the prize is what you should look at. So essentially, it's a 2-page application. So that's $25,000 per page. Sounds like a worthwhile investment. So please have your students look at this, and again, hopefully it's a small amount of money to get some important pilot research done. So with that, I just want to thank everyone for being here, and I think this is a great start at really trying to take a robust look at how to solve this massive problem which is facing the U.S. economy right now. So with that, I'll finish up, and I think we can start with the first speaker. Thank you.